What's up, everybody? Here to do a quick breakdown of the San Antonio Spurs heading to Portland to take on the Trailblazers. Let's see what we got in this game. The Spurs are 7-6 this year. Portland is 8-5. The Spurs are 8-4 against the spread, and Portland is 6-7 against the spread. The Spurs 6-7 to the over, and Portland 5-8 to the over. So both these teams have been trending under. San Antonio has a point differential or a net rating of minus 0.2. Portland 0.5. So it seems pretty easy. What's the biggest thing going on this game? It's got to be the absence of CJ McCollum. I mean, technically he's day-to-day, and I missed some of these injury reports, but I don't think he's going to be back. MRI was negative, but he does have a sprain in his foot. He missed the second half of the win over the Hawks the other night, and I think that's going to be a big loss for the Portland Trailblazers. Let's take a look at their lineup without CJ McCollum. So I'm assuming, and we don't have an official announcement yet, but I'm assuming that Gary Trent Jr. will slide in there. He seemed to take a majority of the minutes. In that case, you'll have a starting lineup of Damian Lillard, Gary Trent Jr., Derek Jones Jr., Robert Covington, and Enes Kanter, who's taking the place of the injured Yusuf Nurkic. So an interesting thing now, Enes Kanter is actually pretty high on the wins above replacement net rating, right? And that surprised me. A lot of the players on there you would expect. Kanter surprised me. So I said I got to watch. I got to see what he's doing to go ahead and make that much of an impact on a game, because he's a guy that we think is just terribly defensively. So for him to be so positive in the net rating surprised me. And so I'll tell you, I took a look, went back and watched some games, and I'll tell you what I saw. He's one of the few guys that still attacks the offensive glass. And I think that a lot of these guys are getting lazy on their defensive rebounding because the new trend in the NBA is to go either 4 out or a lot of times 5 out and drop back to protect the three-point line on a missed shot. Makes it smart. It prevents transition defense. But a lot of these rebounds when they're piling up the stats, they're uncontested rebounds, right? So when you get a guy like Kanter in there who's fighting, a lot of these guys, their box outs, they're just not fundamentally strong, and they just don't have the same repetitions that they used to, where people used to attack the offensive glass constantly. So I think Kanter takes advantage of that. Now, tonight, I don't think that he's going to be able to be as live on the offensive glass. You know, say what you want about LaMarcus Aldridge, but he's a solid rebounder, and he gives you a solid box out. Podol's the same. Maybe when they go with DeRozan at the 4, that could be an issue. But at the other end, he'll just get killed. They can attack Kanter. So I think the Spurs have so many options. Speaking of the Spurs, let's go ahead and take a look at their lineup. A relatively healthy team, except for the injury of Derek White, but he's been out for a little while now, so they've been playing without him. They like to start DeMar DeRozan, DeJounte Murray, Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker, and LaMarcus Aldridge. Then their bench unit, they usually go about 4 deep. They bring in Podol, who's a pretty good defender, Patty Mills, who's good on both sides of the ball, and that definitely gets the offense sent. Rudy Gay is more of a one-way guy at this point of his career, but he can definitely score, especially in isolation. And Devin Vassell, who's a great rookie, not getting that many minutes, but is taking advantage of the minutes that he does have. Great defender, and has been okay from the three-point line. So he's going to be one of their prototypical 3-and-D guys. I like what I see from Devin Vassell so far. So, as we look at these lineups here, I think the Spurs are going to have a huge edge in the bench minutes, right? So Carmelo Anthony so it's funny. Carmelo Anthony comes off the bench, right? But he's been finishing the games over Covington. I don't know why they gave up 2 first-round picks for Covington to not play him at the end of the game. And my idea there, or my guess, because I really don't know, right? I haven't interviewed Terry Stotts, but Covington, we think of him as these great defenders. He's had great statistical seasons. But as an on-ball defender, I think that he's kind of slipping. As you get older, you're not as quick. He's still great as a team defender. He doubles well. He gets in the passing lanes well, gets a lot of steals, and he definitely his defensive IQ is off the charts, right? I mean, he knows where to be and when to be there. I think individually you can attack him in isolation. So I think if they're looking at that, they say, why don't we go ahead and grab the scoring of Carmelo Anthony? Because another thing about Covington this year, three-point shooting has not been where we like it to be. I mean, he's almost like the original 3-and-D guy of the new NBA, emerged from the Hinkie tank as, the one player that really rose to prominence and became a piece during that tanking time. But he's just not got it so far this year. Of course, he will turn it around. But boy, as of right now, those 2 first-round picks look pretty steep to give up. Let's look at a couple other trends and matchups here. The Spurs against the spread, 8-4-1 this year. Fantastic. Portland only 6-7. The Spurs against the spread, 5-1-1 on the road. Portland 2-5 at home. And hey, we've loved Portland. Portland, Denver. I mean, there's some teams that we just always bet at home and fade on the road, right? And this year they just haven't got that. I don't know if it's because the expectations are there, the fact that they're taking money and the cash is out of the bag and this no longer has an edge. But Portland really hasn't been that good against the spread on the road. So I think that's another thing that works into our favor. So basically, I'm taking a Spurs team that is healthy. It's a Spurs team that, okay, they don't have Derek White, but they're well coached. They know what they're doing under Popovich. I really like all these pieces. I think Keldon Johnson's been great so far. I think that they're going to be able to dominate the bench minutes. So therefore, I'm giving out the free pick of the San Antonio Spurs -2. Now, I know that we are late to the party. If I would have did this video last night, I could have given you out a better number. The Spurs were +1. Why did the line move? The line moved because of the absence of Nurkic and McCollum. Nurkic is a much better defender than Cantor, right? He's a much better defender than Cantor. And CJ McCollum, although I think that Gary Trent Jr. is a fantastic player and he can step up and fill in, the problem is that takes away from your depth. It takes away from your depth here. Now you're going to get a little more Rodney Hood minutes. Harry Giles, who's, Sacramento fan favorite, still necessarily hasn't found what it takes. And I'm not big on Anthony Simons as well. I know that they really hoped on him last year to step up and make it, but he's still living on potential, and we just haven't seen it. I think at the end of the game, if you try and run Anthony and Cantor out there, the Spurs are just going to score too easily. I trust the Spurs defense a lot more, and they've been a great team on the road this year. I mean, Pop gets them ready to play every night. I expect Pop to make the better adjustments. And, I'm just going with the healthier team. I think the Blazers have been snake bitten a bit. And the loss of McCollum, well, normally, you would say, I'm a big superstar subtraction guy. I just don't see it tonight. I think the loss of Nurkic and McCollum is too much to overcome. That's why my pick is the Spurs -2. Don't really have a strong feel on the total. Portland has been an over team because they can score and they don't defend. Easy money on the over, right? Watch out. MLK, they're starting earlier than usual. It's MLK Day. Happy MLK Day. I should have started with that, but excuse me for that. But it's going to start usually and early. Their body clocks are going to be off. A lot of players are usually napping at this time. A lot of times with these early starts on these primetime days, we just see a lot of wacky results. Terrible first quarters. Boston Celtics were a prime example of that yesterday. So because of the body clocks and everything, I would lean under here. But I don't have the stones to take an under against the Blazers team who can score and does not defend. So we're going to stay away from the total, lean under, but the official play, the free pick, is the Spurs -2. Enjoy the game. Enjoy your MLK Day. And thank you for joining me. Run Pure.